Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. There are over 15 million refugees in the world, and today we hear from a few who are using creative outlets to counter harsh camp life. So we have done many shows about refugees, but we've done shows about refugees where we're talking about them. What's different about today, Malika Bilal, digital producer of the stream, is that we have refugees talking about their own lives on the show, which is intriguing. What is happening with our online community?
Exactly. So often the perspective is of an outsider's perspective. So our community has lots of questions, things that they want to know from an insider's perspective. Now, starting that conversation online is a community member who works in a camp, in Zaatari Camp in Jordan. Have a listen to this video comment that she sent us.
Communities are being formed everywhere, including in refugee camps. We've seen a lot of families move their tents and prefabricated caravans around Zaatari Camp to be closer not only to their relatives and family members, but also to their neighbors. It gives them that sense of normality as they begin their lives from scratch.
Tweet me using hashtag AJStream and you too could end up in the stream.
My name is Peter Lingo. I work for the Institute for Education and Democracy as the Executive Director and also a steering committee member of the Election Observation Group. I am in the stream.
Peel back the harsh realities and the insecurity of conditions in the world's refugee camps and you'll find some amazing stories. To mark World Refugee Day, we're taking a look at what it's like to grow up in a camp. Cricket matches and film projects, community newspapers are just a few of the ways that young refugees are trying to cope. Joining us to share their experiences, we have Lebon Rashid. He's a refugee filmmaker from Somalia. Lebon lives in Kenya's Dadaab, a refugee camp that's the largest in the world. Rabia El Masri is a third-generation refugee and founder of the first Palestinian rugby team. Sami Al-Dos is a Syrian volunteer at the Zaatari Camp in Jordan. And Mohammed Salem Ararid is a blogger and Sahrawi refugee in Algeria. So gentlemen, it's great to have you here in the stream. I wish it was under different circumstances, but I do really appreciate the fact that you're here. Sami, take us back. You're very welcome. Sami, take us back about 3 years ago, because you weren't born in a refugee camp in Jordan. You had a very different life. What was your life like? What were you up to?
Well, you know, I was living in Saudi Arabia before I came back to Syria at the beginning of the war, and I had really a perfect life. I was doing my best in studying and working with my father to become a pilot. And, you know, the circumstances can go back, you know, backwards, and it did, so I had to go back to Syria. Different.
Okay, so you are Syrian, and you ended up in Zaatari Camp in Jordan.
Exactly, yeah.
You've been there for 2 years. The experience must still be quite fresh. The things that really stand out for you about what's different about your life today, can you explain some of them for us?
What's different is now you can't really have what you want. You can't, you know, you're living living only on hope. You don't really have, like, a name. You can't really, like, do whatever you want. You're living in a camp. Not a lot of things are allowed for you.
What's Sami, what's not allowed?
Like, you know, I wanted to become a pilot.
Right.
And now I'm not like able to go to university because the circumstances I have to afford myself. Living here in a camp is really hard.
Okay.
Well, Liban, there are lots of questions already coming in, and many of them are on accommodations, like this one from Ramyar. He wants to know what accommodations are provided, and he follows up saying, do you have access to basic human rights like decent food, housing, clothing? Liban?
Yeah.
Well, I think those are basic rights. Most of the people get housing, proper housing, food and shelter, but the major problem that basically people face is about the type of food that they are getting now. Most of the type of food that they get is energy-giving foods, although they are given some things like beans, but they are not given milk, they are not given vegetables, they are not given meat, and all these they have to go and buy and survive on the much they can to be able to get that they need.
So what does a typical meal look like for you, Liban? What did your lunch or your breakfast look like today?
Well, for me, I have a job, and my family are also in America and supporting me. So I feel that I'm one of the refugees that live in a very good life, able to get 3 meals. So I get a lunch as a pasta spaghetti. That's what we like more as Somalis.
So Mohammed Salem, people are watching this and thinking, well, we've got 3 of the guests and they're in actual camps and they're on the internet. So it doesn't mean that you don't have technology, you don't have facilities. Can you talk us through what you are able to do in your camp in Algeria?
It's limited chances. Even like the internet, we have about 6 camps in, and all the internet access is just one of the camps. I had to travel today to get here so I can have this chat with you online. It's not available where I live. It's just like the administrative camp where like the offices and the ministers, the Sahrawi ministers. So but yes, we have the access to internet. Like it's limited, but people still can do it. But
So Mohammed Salem, when I'm thinking about where does the joy in life come from, do you have to bring that yourself? Where does that come from? That idea that I have to get up today, but there isn't much to do.
For us, it's kind of strange for people, but if you have if your situation, you live in a misery, for us it's more motivation that drive us to a better future instead of I'm like on the opposite. I'm afraid that someday if I was born in a place where I have everything that I have, I might not be the same person in terms of like fighting for what I want.
I'm looking here at something called the Zaatari voice, and I'm going to scoot down here, and the pictures are incredible. They're vivid, they're lively, they're vibrant. This is one of your projects, Mohammed Salem. Can you explain to me what it is you're doing and why?
Okay, Sahrawi Voice was founded in 2010, and the goal is to spread the word about what's going on in Western Sahara, because Western Sahara was invaded by Morocco, was a former colony of Spain, and then was invaded by Mauritania and Morocco in 1975, and almost like we have been living for 40 years in the refugee camps. No one know anything about us. So it's a project that we are trying to tell our story, the Sahrawi voice, the Sahrawi people's story. Instead of, we believe that in an age of technology, like relying on others to tell your story, it's not option anymore. Especially that the media outlets, they disinterested in the Sahrawi situation. There aren't
right.
It's not.
So it's almost like so it's almost like you're this forgotten community that are out there in a camp that people just have forgotten about you. Hold tight for a moment. The community want to ask you some more questions.
Well, Sammy, there are actually a lot of questions on how you bring in normalcy into life. So we got one answer from another worker for UNHCR from Zaatari Camp. She says this.
One of the most unexpected things about the Zaatari refugee camp, a temporary home for 90,000 Syrians that have fled horrific violence, is the sense of resilience, the sense of hope. This is a place where Syrians have created for themselves a souk, a market street. We affectionately call it the Champs-Élysées. It has everything from restaurants to barber shops to falafel stalls, fruit and veg shops. And this is where life begins again. This is where people are taking care of their families and are really starting to live like people again. And it's one of the most important parts of the Zaatari refugee camp.
So Sammy, she talks about the Champs-Élysées, picking up on the famous street in Paris. Is that really what it's like? She talks about the souks and the marketplaces, but what is that like in your experience and with the people that you work with? Because I know that you volunteer with Mercy Corps.
Yeah, I'm working with Mercy Corps, and that's right. The first we came to Jordan, to the camp, it was not really that much big. It wasn't really, we didn't have any pauper shops, we didn't have any malls, any markets, anything at all. And the people started to build up everything. And, organizations have been working and trying to push the people, the Syrian people, the refugees, to the infront, not just not to let them lose hope. And that was the reason. Finding people who care about us made us feel like we're still alive, made us like, keep our hands together and keep fighting. Yeah. And you can see everything now going.
So Sami, I'm looking at this remarkable refugee camp there in Jordan where you live right now. It has its own Twitter handle. It has a series online so people can follow what you're up to. Also looking at some of the things. Yeah,
I heard that Zaatari Camp is one of the biggest places in Jordan.
What is it like to live there though? Can you give us a little slice of life? What did you do this morning?
To live there?
Yeah.
I wake up, wash up, and, prepare myself, go to work, which became
so what's work? What's work when you live in
I'm
a
a
camp?
volunteer. I'm a volunteer with the Mercy Corps in a gym. I work in a gym.
Right. Do you get paid?
Yeah, I get paid.
You get paid to volunteer to work in a camp. Okay. My kind of volunteering. So what do you do?
I'm a site supervisor.
Right.
It's a facility called Raad Adayleh dealing with adolescents in most difficult circumstances. Living in a camp, we're not like having that much care, so most of the adolescents are involved in the streets, in labor, and in drugs, and in every twisted way. So what we're doing is trying to mix them in activities, trying to, drain out that negative energy and drive them on the right way. And in the same time, we're giving them like social support, psychosocial support, just to keep them thinking that. And we're really going back home. Keep them thinking that we're still fine, and we're doing great.
See, Sami, I'm looking at a picture here on my laptop. Is this part of your volunteer day? What's going on back here?
Here, a friend of mine called Alexandra, you can see her in the middle. Meet me.
Yeah?
She was coming. Yeah, she was coming after leaving Mercy Corps.
Right.
She was coming to visit the kids at the couples
who
were involved in our activities, and we had this, meeting together and laughed and.
Okay, very
really
good.
Fun. Yeah.
Malika.
Salim, what made you to think about working as a volunteer?
Yeah, Sami, what Lebon was asking, what made you think to work as a volunteer? Why did you decide to do that, Sami?
To be honest, the day I worked with Mercy Corps was a really big step for me, a really big jump. Because I lived in a tent for 9 months, not working, not doing anything, and the moment I, met with the manager of Mercy Corps, it was like I was alive again. I was to the right way. I dealt with a lot of things that made me experience a different stuff in the camp that released me in a way.
All right, so we do have a little bit of audio issues, but I know you're going to bear with us, audience, because we actually have 3 of our guests who actually are in refugee camps as we speak. Malika.
Well, Liban, you asked a question of Sami and what made him volunteer. There's actually questions for you here on Twitter of what makes you do what you do. And of course, you're a filmmaker in Dadaab. So Abdurrahman tweets in, Dadaab camp it's unique. Despite the challenges, it's techno-savvy youth running various technological services like cyber cafes. Now, he goes on to say that projects run by refugees have the advantage of acceptance, unlike other programs, because they're from within. So, Liban, take us through a typical day. You're out there with your camera. Do you get threats from people who maybe don't understand what you're doing and don't like it?
Well, I think as a community, I come from the Somali community, and most of them have a bad perception about what film is all about. So when I first started as a filmmaking, I get support from an agency working in the Dadaab camps called Film Aid International, and they train us on filmmaking. And I thought film is the best way to be able to share our stories and to be able to talk to the refugees in the Dadaab camps. It is over 500,000 refugees, and they have a remarkable stories to tell. So they also need where to share and where to tell their stories. And the first story the first film I did was a film about the cat, this a drug that's being used by the refugees, the youth, and it's really disturbing the youth, and they are addicted to it. All the money, everything that they get, they use to buy it. And after making that film, it is what makes me, sells me to my community to get acceptance from them and also the aid agencies. And from that's what drives me until I make different films.
So, Liban, we're looking at one of your films right now. We're looking at Welcome to Dadaab, but your filmmaking is actually, it's actually kind of taking off. You've won awards, right, for your filmmaking?
Yes, as best director and the best outstanding refugee filmmaker in Dadaab and also in Kakuma. And basically, this film was about a film I directed during the Somali famine time in 2011 when mass Somalis were coming from the Middle Juba and also Baya and Bakol regions and flocking to camps in Dadaab.
All right, Liban, take a breath for a moment, because I think people, Liban, will be surprised that you're a film director in the world's largest refugee camp. I was surprised to find that in Jordan, there's a Palestinian rugby team, in Lebanon, excuse me. And look at these pictures. I just want you to look, because this is the brainchild and the genesis of Rabia El Masri. Rabia, how did this happen? Why did this happen?
Yeah, actually, for us in Lebanon, the Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, maybe it doesn't have the same problem of the other refugees in the world, not just food and essential things. The problem in Lebanon that we don't have rights of human rights, if you want. In Lebanon, as we don't have the right to work, we don't have the right to be owners of things and the lands. We don't have the rights to have visas to travel unless in very specific situations. We don't have the right to present our country Palestine, neither our country Lebanon, in sports and anything. So we don't have an identity. We can't present anything as a people or as a nation.
All right. So there's certain restrictions to actually even how you live your life. Okay. So bearing those restrictions in mind, what made you think rugby team?
Exactly. Actually, for me personally, and my family and my two brothers, we started martial arts in a very early age. We were learned that in combat and in martial arts and in all sports of combat, you learn how to control yourself, how to be more controller, and how to be more peaceful. Contrary of the idea that people have, when you play a hard game, you are more peaceful and you are more controller of yourself.
Sure.
So as in the camps, the life is a bit aggressive, with no work, no rights, no life. So it's normal that people will turn to aggressivity, to
so this is
easy solution.
Rabia, so this was like a major distraction. What difference did you see in the young people who were playing rugby? I heard that even girls wanted to be on the team.
Exactly. Actually, these guys, the idea to play rugby was first to de-stress these guys, to give out this big tension they have in the camp.
Sure.
And then in the rugby, we need their courage. They are a courageous guys. They are they have the strong will and the strong, and they are very motivated.
Okay.
So in the rugby field, we need
so the qualities in rugby that help you survive a refugee camp. I would like to get, in the closing few moments of this show, your survival tips for refugees who are in your situation. I know that at refugee camps around the world, people are watching the World Cup, people watch Al Jazeera. I know you have access from time to time. So Liban, let me start with you. What would be your survival tips that you would pass on to other people who are in your situation?
Well, it used to be very difficult for us in the Dadaab camps late 1991, 92, 93, but things are a bit changing now. We have in our houses, we have big hotels that showcase, these international channels, Al Jazeera, the Sky, CNN, and
so it's more a livable situation. But the one piece of advice you would give is what? Liban.
Well, the advice that I will give is in the Dadaab camps while Refugee Day is tomorrow, and we're reading more about peace. And I want to add that each and every one have to be very strong peace and live peacefully with his neighbors, and remember that
a peaceful life.
The worst thing in this world, peaceful life. The worst thing in this world is to be a refugee, because here we're in a confined area. It was very difficult for me to live here. I tried once to live here.
All right, Lebon, take a breath for a moment, because I just want to hear from the other gentleman also in a similar situation in other parts of the world. Mohammed Salem, is there's one piece of advice you would give to other refugees around the world, what would it be? Just very briefly, because we have very little time left.
So never give up, and that they can achieve what they want if they work on it, and never give it up.
Never give up. So we're just going to go and wrap up all of this. I'm really curious, Malika, what our online community are saying about what they've been hearing, because these are distressing stories, I have to admit.
They are, definitely. And I think some people are offering their own suggestions for what they hope they'll see. Im Gladcall says, hopefully we can provide hope and healing, as well as helping to preserve their heritage during this upheaval.
Okay. All right. So we'll be taking this discussion into the post show, but I know Malika has some other stories that we're following here on the stream, and she will give them to you in just a moment.
Pandemonium on the internet after a Facebook outage on Thursday. The worldwide blackout lasted about half an hour. Now, several took to Twitter to mock the panic expressed by many. Stefan says, "We will never forget Black Thursday when Facebook was down." OMG, Priya writes, "When Facebook was down, I was forced to wish my mom a happy birthday in real life. It was difficult." We turn now to the United States, where the Patent Office has canceled trademarks for U.S. football's Washington Redskins, saying it's offensive to Native Americans. Users reacted with hashtag new Redskins name, giving suggestions on what the NFL team should be called. Morgan tweets, "The Washington Drones would be a very fitting new Redskins name if you think about the past two administrations in the White House." And our last lead is out of Iraq, where users took to Twitter to reject sectarianism and violence in the country. Using the hashtag no to ISIS, Iraqis launched a selfie campaign against armed fighters. Mohammed tweets, "It's unbelievable to see people defending the horrific barbarism of ISIS. Anyone who defends them doesn't deserve to be called human. No to ISIS." Well, we've rounded up that discussion on our website, so check it out and share your thoughts at stream.aljazeera.com. Femi?
I missed Facebook going down. Not that I missed it, I'm glad I missed it, but when was that?
We both missed it. It was about 4 a.m. our time, so it was mostly Asia that was affected.
Wow, poor Asia.
They really made up for it on Twitter, though.
Right, and how long was it for again?
Just not too long, less than an hour.
All right, so I was off a couple of weeks ago, and we had a conversation here about transgender children, very young, amazing conversation.
Incredible stories.
We're actually going to take that a little bit further. We're going to take that on into school. So once you've gone past that process about how do you understand and recognize a transgender child, going into the school, and it's a debate that's happening right now in Vancouver. So let me tell you about Monday's program. We'll be talking about Vancouver's new transgender school policy, and students will be allowed to use whatever toilet and gender pronoun they choose. It's a debate in Canada that we'll be dipping into next week. So the post show is next at stream.aljazeera.com. We are marking World Refugee Day, so do join us there if you can. In the meantime, let's see you online. Thanks for watching. Hello again, this is the post show where we pick right back up on our conversation on how young people are finding creative ways to cope with life in a refugee camp. I am always worried about a show like this, Malika, because we offer up lots and lots of problems and we don't really look at maybe how else can people help. If I was watching this, I'd be like, how can I help? Lebon, how can people help? How do they help people in Dadaab? Maybe they're watching the other side of the world. What do you need from people around the world? Do you need anything?
Well, yes, we need so many things from the rest of the world. We need to, we need to make connections with them. We need them to really support the refugees. Because now refugees supported each other because there's something we call links to the diaspora. There are refugees that were living in the camps and got settlement opportunities and went to the other countries. They are now supporting their neighbors, supporting their friends, schoolmates,
Right.
all
And
that. So
and what kind
we
of support
also
is
need
that?
the world to follow suit.
So Lebon, what kind of help is that? If people are like, okay, I get that, but I don't know anybody from Somalia, but I really like Lebon and I want to help with his next film project, or maybe Lebon's neighbor. How do they practically help you?
Well, we have got links, we have got Facebook, we are active in Twitter,
Okay.
we have the refugee newspaper, so we have so many things that they can help us.
There's
support us.
also
And
a remarkable-
they support scholarships,
Yeah.
if they can give to the youths, because most of the youths here, when they finish a secondary, they don't get opportunities. There are opportunities, but they are very minimal.
Sure.
So if they able to find scholarships.
And also,
Help
Lebon,
them
if I might just add that scholarships are a great way of actually getting out of the refugee camp. Actually, other countries offering a scholarship takes young people out and they can actually get out of the situation and study. And that's a big deal.
Yes.
Right. All right.
It's a big deal because once people learn, then they can be able to help their friends, their
Absolutely.
family, and their country also.
Sammy,
Yeah.
how do people help?
I think some people can help by donating money. A lot of people have lost their schools, and we're not going to have the next generation destroyed, not learning, and coming from the old
Right.
doom. And people who can't would just fight for us, right?
Okay.
Really.
All right, Malika.
Well, in talking about how we can help, there's one person who wants to talk about combating the issues we may not be able to see. So, Liban, this person wants to talk about mental health. Have a listen to this video comment that was submitted to the stream.
Many refugees undergo survivor's guilt. They have mental anguish, traumatic experiences. As refugees yourselves and having created an environment of a greater standard of living, how do you help combat the mental anguish and the survivor's guilt that many refugees in your community, in the community that you set up, continue to face?
Liban, is that a challenge for you? Is that something that you face?
Well, yes, we face such things, but what we do is to accompany such a person, talk to him, give a mentor, and sit with him, make film out of him if possible, share with the rest of the world his story and how he's coping up, and help him with different agencies that can really support or give a helping hand to such a person and direct him the best way to go and get services.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time. I think it's amazing that we managed to get in internet connections, even with a little bit of tricky, hard to hear audio. It's amazing that we were able to connect with you in Dadaab and also in Zaatari and also out there in Algeria. So I have to say thank you to Lebon, to Sami, to Rabia, to Mohammed Salim. We really appreciate you sharing those stories with us. So, if you're watching, you're very, very welcome, gentlemen. If you're watching, there are a couple of places that I think you should go to online. So there's dadaabstories.org. It's an amazing website. You'll see some of Lebon's film work there and also find out about the Dadaab refugee camp. There's also Mohammed Salim's project here, which is beautiful. The Zaatari voice blog here with pictures and stories and videos. And one more place I'm going to suggest you go to, which is actually their Twitter handle, the Twitter site, the feed for the Zaatari camp. And again, you'll be able to follow some of the stories there. You might even see Sammy pop up from time to time. So that is a wrap for this part of the program. I will tell you that on Monday, we'll be talking about Vancouver's new transgender school policy. Students will be allowed to use whatever toilet and gender pronoun that they choose. It's a debate in Canada that we'll be dipping into next week. Until then, see you online.